Blank check with Griffin and David. Blank check with Griffin and David. Don't know what to say or to expect. All you need to know is that the name of the show is Blank Check.
Let me ask you something, Rocky. Man to man. I think she's the podcast of the century.
Rocky?
That's how it's written. He calls her Rocky. Okay. My Douglas is not very good. That's one of the worst ones.
It wasn't really. I didn't even know you were doing him, really.
I guess you just do a lockjaw. No, but now I'm sounding like
He's got a very specific voice, and you're not doing it.
I can't
do it either.
I can't do it either.
It's a bit greasy.
It is greasy.
Everything about it
clenched
is greasy.
thing.
We've
talked about
what a run he's having at this point in his career.
We talked about in a previous episode how incredible it was that he became such a major movie star just being a piece of shit. Like that was his whole brand was just like, what a piece of shit this guy is.
He loves to grit his teeth, though. It is a lot of like, fuck you.
Yeah.
I can't do it, though.
No.
Whatever. Anyway.
Hello, everybody. My name's Griffin Newman.
I'm David Sims.
This is Blank Check with Griffin and David. No, we love it when guests talk before they're introduced. You have a point you're burning to make, clearly.
Please.
I was just going to introduce myself, but I didn't wait, so go ahead.
No. It's totally fine. You're killing it so far. This is what we like. It's perfect. This podcast is called Blank Check with Griffin and David. On it, we talk about filmographies. Directors who had massive success early on in their career and were issued a series of blank checks to make whatever crazy passion projects they want. And sometimes those checks clear, and sometimes they bounce, baby. And this is a miniseries on the films of Paul Verhoeven in Hollywood.
True.
This is sort of the midpoint.
Yeah.
Right? Up until now, all hits.
Mm-hmm.
This continues
Including
the streak.
This, right.
Yes. Miniseries is called Podship Casters.
Mm-hmm.
And today we're talking about the movie Basic Instinct.
Yep.
And our guest today.
All right.
I'm Miriam Bale.
Hell yeah.
That's right.
Hell yeah, it is.
Guests should introduce themselves all the time.
Yeah, it's
We're terrible at introducing. We're like, oh, they're a great person, and hello.
Yeah. I like the thoughts their brain make. We're very bad at introductions.
I feel like I'm caught that I haven't listened to the podcast enough.
Totally
to
fine.
know the format. I'm so
Get
sorry.
ready for a lot of bullshit.
Pause, and we'll play some for you.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, let's get back to it.
And we're back.
It's been
Miriam
50 hours.
Listen to the entire back catalog, and she is not amused.
No, she left.
Yeah, she asked
She's
if we could
outta
reschedule.
Yeah, right.
We weren't lying. This is a no bits podcast.
No bits. Miriam, you're a very big Verhoeven fan.
Yeah, but I was sort of late to him. I didn't really become a big fan until I saw this movie 7 years ago or so. I think before that I'd seen Starship Troopers, which I really, really liked, and I'd seen Showgirls, which I was not as enthusiastic as some of my friends about.
Right.
And then I saw this, and then I like his more recent. Oh no, I saw the World War II movie somewhere around there.
Black Book,
Black Book,
right.
yeah.
Because that's about 10 years old at this point. It's maybe 11 years old.
Yeah, around there too. And then, but I love his his most recent. I really totally loved. And I love Basic Instinct. I think it's like such a masterpiece.
They're probably the most twinned, right? Like if Elle had a sister in his Hollywood genre,
100%. In the same way that like RoboCop and Starship Troopers are twinned,
yes,
you know?
Sure, yeah. Right.
They're definitely paired films. Although this is more of like a out and out genre exercise. Like this is such a noir movie.
For sure.
Well, I think Elle is too. I was watching them again, and well, for me, that his something I noticed while I was watching Elle is how much like it reminded me of the Oshima movie Max Mon Amour.
I have never seen it. I know it, but I've never seen it.
It is so good, and it just follows the basic structure of this like French.
The one with the monkey, right?
Exactly. Yes. It's like a French bourgeois adultery drama, except it's about Charlotte Rampling having an affair with a chimpanzee.
Right.
So
an ape, I should say, not a monkey. Chimpanzees are apes.
Sure.
So sorry.
And so it's sort of this weird parody of that kind of genre of that like adultery. And I feel the same about like the music in the beginning, the certain classical music, the broken china, her house. I feel like Elle is a really like what Verhoeven did for American movies with like RoboCop and with noir with this, he did for French.
Movies.
I've made the same point in a previous episode.
I believe you have. Yes.
I agree 100%. Because I saw Elle with my mother, who is French, and is not a huge Verhoeven fan, but knows how much I love him. And she couldn't stop getting over how well he got not just French culture, but French movies.
Yeah.
How well he was aping and sort of deconstructing the French erotic thriller. And I was like, yeah, that's what I've been telling you forever. This guy's an outsider who knows it better than the insiders.
Sure.
And it was really interesting, that outsider looking at the culture in this, because I hadn't seen RoboCop and Total Recall until just this week.
Really?
Awesome.
Yeah. Even though, so I say I'm a fan, but I hadn't caught up on them. And that was really interesting to see his like use of television, which is more like overt parody, especially in RoboCop. And then here it's so much more subtle. Like the TV is in the background, but it's totally an essential part of it. It's really, it's interesting how it's related to those two.
Yeah, this is definitely more subtle in its satire than RoboCop and Total Recall, which are arguably as much comedies as they are action films and sci-fi films, you know?
Yeah, well, I would say subtle. I mean, it's not so subtle in its noir parody, but also there's the weird, like, cowboy bar thing. That's when he's like, oh, America is so funny. I'm from the Bay Area. I have not seen a lot of cowboy bars. I was going to say, because
that character, George Zunza. I forget how you say his name, which I feel bad because I love him.
There's that amazing thing watching this
movie. But it's like he lives in Alabama. Like he gets in his car every night, from the Bay Area, and he's like, all right, I'm going to go home.
Goes
into
his ranch.
Drives to Tuscaloosa. Like, who is he supposed to be? I know there are like, there's like salt of the earth Irish guys in the Bay Area too. Sure,
it almost
Polish
feels
guys,
like an earlier draft of this movie took place in a different town, and then they rewrote it and kept him in Montana.
But I mean, well, anyway, but I just think if he's making this noir parody, you need to have those guys. You need to have those guys with like the snap brim hats. He doesn't have a hat. You know what I mean? Like the sort of rotund suspenders guys who are like, what are you doing? But it's broad. She's no good.
There is that thing I love in this movie because this is so much the iconic Sharon Stone movie. You forget that she wasn't a huge star before this movie. So Michael Douglas is the only one above the title in the opening credits. So it goes like Douglas, then Basic Instinct, then Stone, and you're like, wow, Stone didn't even like crack above the title, and then DeZunza.
yeah, sure.
It's like Stone and DeZunza are vaguely on equal playing field at this point.
I think it's just like Zunza.
Yeah,
because I'm assuming it's a Polish name.
Probably, yeah,
or Ukrainian maybe. Anyway, I don't know.
He's so good in this.
He's really good in this.
He's awesome in this.
Yes.
He's my favorite character, probably.
Yeah.
I love him.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely...
meant to, though. He's meant to be everyone's favorite character.
Absolutely.
Like,
unquestionably the most empathetic character. Like, he's kind of the only person in this movie who isn't a psychopath, right?
That's true.
Right. He's a much more predictable, reliable kind of person.
He's just a guy. He's got his simple vices in life. He loves this cowboy bar. Just let him do
Let's just
thing.
talk about Gus, Detective Gus.
When he gets to that, we're just going to spend the whole episode talking about the scene at the cowboy bar. But I like that when he gets to the bar, he's almost pissed off that Douglas is like intruding on the one thing that gives him joy. Like he's just here drunk, wearing a big 10-gallon hat, and Douglas has to come in with his like, I slept with her. And it's like,
with his like 80s shit. He's like basically covered in cocaine. Right. He's like, what's going on?
He's like, I have my nice B plot here. Just let me be.
Then he starts screaming about like pussy in a diner or whatever, right? Like that's when Michael Douglas is like, all right, chill out.
Yeah, wait a second.
Come on, Gus. Jesus.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll get to all that.
This is an Esterhaus movie. This is the first of the two Esterhaus collaborations, and it definitely shows in the verbiage chosen in almost every single line of dialogue.
Yeah. I mean, he had been around for a while.
Yes.
Because he wrote Fist.
Yeah.
He wrote Flashdance.
Right.
What else? Jagged Edge. Right. Yeah. Hearts of Fire. Sorry. Talk more.
That's okay. What's an example of Esterhausian language?
Magna cum laude pussy. And I'd say that's kind of like, that's what they'll put on his tombstone.
That's a pretty good
He
one.
was the magna cum laude
well, I mean, in Showgirls
of screenwriters.
Showgirls is where he challenged himself to make every line one of those lines, right?
Correct.
Where, I mean, there's,
but even just that opening bit when they find the dead body and they say like, so he got off before he got offed.
Yeah, no, I was about to say that. Yeah, there are cum stains all over the seat. Very impressive. And then Gus like sort of like almost runs into me. He got off before he got off.
Right.
You know, it's like, what? They're not going to say that. Sorry, I'm really blowing up the mic.
But like after this discussion of just like how much cum there was and the moment of the guy putting on the night
Not
vision
only how much cum there
goggles.
was, a slow pan across the stains with a corpse's penis and shot. I mean, like Verhoeven's not really fucking around
at
like,
all.
It's a summer release, isn't it? Maybe not.
March. Okay.
All right.
But yeah, that's how this movie opens, is full tilt, like Verhoeven sex. This like very bizarre sex scene that becomes like, I feel like 10 years of shitty stand-ups doing jokes about like, real sex isn't the way they make sex look in the movies. You know, in the movies, it's always like.
Sure, it's a bit of a Red Shoe Diaries sort
definitely.
of,
right?
No, let him finish his act. I was going to see where it was going.
Ben's here.
Producer Ben's here. The Ben-Deucer's here. The Purduer Ben is here. The Poet Laureate. The Haas. Mr. Positive. Mr. Positive. The Tiebreaker.
You know,
Birthday
they
Benny,
make
Soaking
sex
Benny,
look
Dirt
like,
Benny, the Peeper.
You know, it's only had between attractive people in the movies.
You can wish him
you should see
Fennel.
some of my ex-girlfriends.
He's graduated Certain Talls over the course of
just working out my
miniseries.
tight five, David.
Hilo Ben, producer Ben Kenobi.
What do you think?
Ben Night Shyamalan.
When he does this, I look at my emails.
Say Ben
No, I know.
Really
I'm talking to you, though. I'm talking over
War
it.
Haas,
So that's a new thing.
Ben 19, the Fennel Maker.
Right? Are you into
Sorry
that?
about that, Miriam.
Wow.
Yep.
We got some stuff we got to do.
Yeah. That's it, though, right? We're done.
That's it.
Okay.
But also, I'll say in that scene that that opening scene, Gus has the great line that makes him so sympathetic about he notices the Picasso, so he's slightly cultured.
Yes,
and he's like, but hers is bigger.
Yeah.
Yes. He's got so many. There's also the line about the civic-minded, responsible cocaine.
Yes.
Which I think is very funny.
Well,
These are all Esterhaus.
We have this
like.
very ecstatic, over-the-top sex scene that's very similar to how Verhoeven depicts violence, which is like impressionistically, like having people behave in a way that isn't realistic to show what sex feels like rather than how sex looks.
Sure. I do think you see the warning signs of his sex in Showgirls in this movie, where it's like, it's so exaggerated and athletic, you know, and like leaning towards like totally unerotic, which is where he then tips over to
overly aggressive and also like looks physically painful. Like bodies aren't supposed to bend in that direction.
It just sort of looks like a workout. You know what I mean?
It looks like a workout. It looks like a real. It looks exhausting. Let's just. Put it
also
that way.
in the opening scene, we're not seeing her face, so we can be sort of like in the dark as to whether it's her or not.
Yes,
and I find that somewhat distracting. Where I keep being like, still.
There's a bit of a Cousin It thing going on.
Yeah, Cousin It. That's well.
And then of course she produces an ice pick, and stabs him thoroughly.
Through the face.
Yes.
Did you watch it on Netflix? Because they have the unrated cut on Netflix, and it's got this horrifying like stab in the face.
Oh no, I watched the Blu-ray. I don't know if
the Blu-ray probably has it too.
The Blu-ray at this point is the unrated.
They had to edit out some of the like harshest stabs for the R rating.
Do you know what's the crazy stat I read, which I cannot even begin to process? He has only had one movie that wasn't originally rated X out of his Hollywood films. There's only one film that he didn't have to go back and cut stuff out of, and it was Hollow Man.
Right, which, honestly...
which is insane.
Should probably be rated NC-17.
But all the other ones were originally rated NC-17, and then most of them now, the NC-17 version has become the circulated version.
Right. Only one of them was released NC-17.
Correct.
Which one?
Showgirls.
Oh,
right. Okay. Which was sort of they tried to be like, you know what? All right, fine. We're gonna see if that works. Like, so hot, you know.
Right.
Censors.
But now it's like it's harder to find the theatrical version of RoboCop or Basic Instinct.
Right.
Very, very graphic ice pick, a very, very specific weapon. This movie treats ice picks like they're house keys. Like there's something that everyone...
He says you can get it at Kmart or whatever for $1.95.
Yeah, but also when's the last time you went over someone's place and they took out a giant block of ice and picked at it rather than just getting a fucking 99-cent ice cube tray?
Maybe you knew the cocktail mixologist.
Yeah.
Maybe they do it. You could remake it.
Right, now it's a heightened artisanal
You could do like a cocktail Basic Instinct crossover, like mashup.
Yes.
about an ice pick murderer.
But you would have to do that. If you made this movie today, you would have to justify like, oh, he's really into artisanal cocktails. Like you'd have to have like rhubarb in his on his shelf, you know.
Yeah, he works at the cowboy bar. He does he does sex on the beaches over there.
Right, it's an ironic cowboy bar.
Right.
You know, speaking of bars, David, let's say hypothetically.
Man walks into a bar.
No.
Sorry.
I'm not a hack, okay?
Yeah,
no street jokes on this podcast. All homegrown bits. Let's say hypothetically.
Yeah.
I got a friend. Okay, a hypothetical friend. And that friend was cast to play a superhero based on an underground cult comic book, which was then turned into an animated Fox Kids show.
Yeah, Mothman.
A short-lived
no, I get it.
sitcom in the early 2000s,
Yeah,
right?
You're talking about Griffey Nooms.
No, it's a hypothetical friend of mine.
Sure.
Okay? And the character was historically a little more rotund.
Uh-huh.
And then the pilot came out and people were like, oh, why isn't this guy fat?
Yeah, you're a skinny guy.
I'm talking hypothetically about a friend.
Yeah. What's your hypothetical question?
And then that person gained like 8 or 9 pounds and was like, oh, this is going to be great. All the friends are going to like thank me for like gaining weight to look like the character. I'm like the Robert De Niro of superhero satires. Hypothetically, my friend said this. And then no one said anything good. And then he just felt really tired. And so when hypothetically the show got picked up for a second season, he was like, fuck that extra weight. I should just be in good shape.
Yeah. Okay. Do you have a question?
What would be like a good way
to get in shape?
Well, no, I'm just saying like, you know, cut down on the snacking
right.
to eat right.
You eat garbage.
I usually eat garbage.
I don't mean to, you know, tag you here, but you don't eat good.
They call me Billy Goat Griff because I usually eat out of garbage can.
Would you rather eat like a whole food bar made with whole ingredients that like is upfront with the customer about like everything that goes into it?
Yeah, because here's the thing. If I'm going to eat garbage, I want to know it's garbage, right?
Sure.
But then a lot of these protein bars, they pretend that they're healthy.
Right, but they're just like, it's just like you're eating a Reese's peanut butter cup.
It's the same junk. Wake up, sheeple.
Yeah.
Okay, our sponsor this week, RX Bar.
Yeah, I mean, you're asking the question, but you love these things. You should be pitching me.
They sent me a box.
Yeah.
I've been eating these things up like crazy.
Yeah.
I have fun eating them. I'm sitting on my couch in my apartment, afraid to leave, haven't seen air in 36 hours because I have severe anxiety.
Sure.
And the winter is bad for me.
Yeah.
And I'm eating these bars and I'm going,
he's got a smile on his face, folks. That's because he's eating protein bars that aren't filled with like preservatives and artificial ingredients.
But they got core ingredients that do the talking. I mean, and if I had to do the math, I'd say, I don't know, simply like eating 3 egg whites, 2 dates, and 6 almonds with no BS.
I think that's on the label, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. Egg white protein, good source of protein, easy for your body to absorb.
Right. Not bad for you. Doesn't make you feel like garbage.
I notably hate eggs.
Sure, you do.
Avoid them. I find them disgusting.
Eggs, but you like these bars.
Because they're mixed in. I don't have to look at an egg.
It binds the bar together.
And I go to the doctor and he goes, your blood works weird. It feels like you don't eat eggs at all. And I'm like, yeah, get that away from me. I eat these bars. I'm coming and he's going, best blood I've ever seen.
Great.
And here's the thing I was surprised by. A bit of a Shyamalan twist.
Okay.
Turns out real food ingredients actually taste really good.
Like, rather than just artificial flavor.
Yeah, you can taste the cacao.
Ooh.
The real fruit, the spices, like sea salt.
So they got like a chocolatey flavor?
They got like 6 chocolatey flavors.
They got like a berry flavor?
They're lousy with it. Yeah, and they got savory, they got sweet, they got
peanut
salty.
butter.
They got all these things. I'm eating them a lot.
Here's something else I know about RX bars.
Yeah.
They're gluten-free.
Mm-hmm.
They're soy-free. They're dairy-free.
But why does that concern you?
They have no added sugar.
Why does that concern you?
Oh, well, the person I love is gluten-free.
Humble brag.
So she's actually been eating the RX bars. She likes them.
Really?
I've been eating the RX bars.
So I should start a little club.
Yeah. And they're great for breakfast on the go.
Right.
They're great for snacks at the office. You take them on the plane.
Great if you're trying to lose 8 pounds for season 2 of The Tick.
Just like for before a workout or after a workout, if you need an energy boost, you need a snack.
Seasonal affective disorder makes you too scared to leave home, but you also don't want to call anyone for delivery because even that level of interaction is scary. Just pick out an RX bar.
What was your favorite kind of bar?
I mean, look, let me say this. I'm a peanut butter boy.
Oh,
so you give me chocolate peanut butter, and I'm thrilled.
All right. Well, our listeners can get 25% off their first order.
And that's a good chunk.
Yeah. So for 25% off your first order, you visit rxbar.com/check.
Mm-hmm.
The promo code is check.
Check to make
Get
sure you
25% off. This isn't no 10%. This isn't like a free song. It's 25% off these things. Yeah. They're great.
And some of these other podcasts, they're offering you deals. Oh, type in our promo code. It will cost an extra 50%. We're not doing that.
we insist on 25% off this RX bar.
We're giving you a full quarter off. What, 25 cents? No, a quarter of the price, dummy.
So, for 25% off,
yeah,
rxbar.com/check. Enjoy.
Lose those 7 pounds for season 2. Very relatable. Everyone can relate to that. So, bloody murder, and then immediately who they call in? The greasiest cop in San Francisco, Michael Douglas.
Yeah, fresh off like shooting someone while high on coke.
Yes, right.
Or like shooting 2 people or something.
Yes, and the cop.
He's the worst person in the world.
Right. In a shootout where he was undercover in a drug bust, where he got too deep and became addicted to cocaine himself. He shot 2 tourists and another cop and did not shoot the people he was supposed to shoot.
Like, what was he shooting at?
Right. Then his wife committed suicide. They assigned him a therapist to work through his issues, and he started a torrid sexual relationship
an affair with her.
With the therapist.
He also bought a nice leather couch and put it in his crappy apartment.
The most depressing apartment I have ever seen, and I've lived in some depressing apartments. So he's not doing well. But the movie doesn't care because he's Michael Douglas and that's his brand.
Sure.
I feel like when you see him with a V-neck sweater
I was
without a shirt
bring
on.
up that sweater.
God,
oh my God.
Look.
That's such a look.
Yeah.
Only that's like, to me, that is
Yeah.
that if you need a snapshot of Michael Douglas, that's it.
Yes. It's a deep green V, but a deep V. And I feel like the sleeves are rolled up. Maybe I can't remember.
Yeah. And the V is kind of pulled down. You're right. It's a stretched V.
I mean, the clothes in this movie are very thought through. Like I would say it in general.
Yeah.
I want to find it. Here it is. I found it. Haha. Yes, the sleeves. I was right about the sleeves.
They're pulled up.
Oh yeah. To a bar, you wear this.
Yeah.
Like what? This is your choice?
Oh my God, that's a picture of him dancing to like techno music with this rolled up.
Everyone else, all the women are dressed in this like very expensive looking, sort of club clothing, and he's like,
bar. It's like a converted,
what should I with the J. Crew?
Right. But the bar looks like a converted church that's now decked out with neon.
Yeah, right. It's like a step away from like the Matrix or whatever.
Everyone else looks like they're in Zion, and Michael Douglas comes in as like
he really makes it work though. I mean, look at him. What's your opinion on Michael, Miriam?
Well, I think he's just the worst, and he's so good at being the worst.
Yeah,
and he's always the same, like this and Fatal Attraction, and he's so good at just being awful. But I was also obviously in this movie, he quotes his dad a lot because it's like a 50s noir, and so you're always aware of Kirk Douglas, and you're always aware that this is a noir, but this is like this sleazy noir that's just like somehow related, but fucked up and gross.
Right. Yeah, it's like a coked up noir, I guess.
There's this quote I remember.
It's a noir who then accidentally shot a couple of people and moved to a crappy apartment.
Right. There's this quote I always remember about Adrian Lyne going to like a test screening of a Fatal Attraction and being frustrated at how much the audience was still on Michael Douglas's side.
Right.
Where he was like, Jesus Christ, like they just saw you sleeping with another woman and they're still rooting for you. And he just had this thing where he owned being a piece of shit so hard, but somehow, like, even if he wasn't sympathetic, he was compelling.
But so I want to talk about him for a second, actually. So, because, his early career, he was on this show, The Streets of San Francisco, and then he was like the young, handsome cop guy. And then he's in movies and like, I like him in The China Syndrome, where he's like the nice cameraman who's just like along for the show. Like he's not trying to dominate that movie at all.
But you're missing a big step.
Go ahead.
The Kirk Douglas shadow loomed really, really large over him. He had a hard time making it, and then he got Streets of San Francisco, but it was like, that's a TV guy.
Yeah,
TV guys don't cross over into movies. He got really into producing.
Yeah, he produced One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Which was meant to be a vehicle for him.
Right.
Oh, I didn't
He
know.
kept on buying rights to things to try to make vehicles for himself, and everyone was like, we're not going to cast you. You're a fucking TV actor. Get Nicholson in here.
Right.
So he wins an Oscar for producing One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, but is like
Starts
frustrated that he wasn't in it.
Right.
I think China Syndrome he also produced or bought the rights to.
Yeah, he produced it.
Right. He had to like fight his way into being the third
And he produced
lead of that movie.
Romancing the Stone, which is his big lead breakup, but in which he's kind of like Indiana Jones if Indiana Jones was like a little more of a piece of shit. And Indiana Jones is kind of a piece of shit.
But he has that 10-year run where he makes himself a movie star through becoming a good producer first.
But then
he's working his way into his own project.
This run is what I want to talk about. So you got Fatal Attraction and Wall Street in 87, which is like back-to-back
same year.
hell.
Okay, right. And he wins Best Actor.
Black Rain in 89, the Ridley Scott movie. The War of the Roses, which is a bleak...
It's great.
It's a great movie, but... and then Basic Instinct, and in 93 he has Falling Down, and in 94 he has Disclosure, which is sort of like Basic Instinct, but Basic Instinct was so bad. You know what I mean? Like a sex thriller with absolutely no intelligence.
So is
whatsoever.
This the end of his run,
this is I feel like, this is the last good part of his run. And then like Disclosure is where he's like trying it one more time and it's like, no, forget it. Because then in 95 he makes The American President, which is him like playing a really like upstanding guy for once. Like,
and then it sort of becomes like warmed over cop thrillers. It becomes like Don't Say a Word and like.
Well, no, but he's in The Game, which I love him.
Oh, right.
I think that's a great movie.
And he's really good in that.
I think that movie's a lot of fun.
But you know
that movie's like, what if you just fucked with that guy?
Right. And by that point, he's kind of broken. Like that movie is like the sad shell of Michael Douglas.
Well, yeah. And then he's in A Perfect Murder, that terrible Dial M for Murder remake.
Yes.
And then Wonder Boys, and then he's becoming like Daddy Douglas, Traffic.
Right.
Those sorts of, gray-haired Douglas.
That's a big shift for him. Yeah. And now he's become more of a character actor.
He married Catherine Zeta-Jones. Yeah. He got cancer, and everyone fell in love with him all over again. He's had a wild ride. It's crazy.
But he started
now
spending
he's in Ant-Man.
Yeah, but also fucking Liberace Behind the Candelabra, which is so fucking good in.
That's a good performance.
That's a really great performance.
Soderbergh gets great performances out of it.
And Soderbergh, like in 2000, when they were working on Traffic, was like, "Have you ever thought about playing Liberace?" And it took him like 15 years to get that movie made.
Huh. Yeah, and it had to be for HBO.
It had to be for HBO, and Douglas had like cancer remission,
Yeah.
Like they kept on pushing it off because that was like the big role for him. But other than that, he's mostly been playing supporting stuff now. Yep. He's elder statesman and stuff.
But this is, as you were saying, like this is like shit heel, kind of charming, sweater-wearing asshole Michael Douglas.
But he's also so creepy in this. Like something like
he's terrible.
Like you look at Fatal Attraction, where it's like, oh, he's sleazy, but he's like charming. That's the key to the whole movie.
Like Fatal Attraction is like, what if you cheated on your wife? What if bad stuff happened? This one's like, what if you had shot a couple of people and you were in a coke spiral, and then you decide to sleep with maybe a serial murderess?
Like every time he's on screen, I just want to take out a garden hose and just like pin him against the wall and just fucking hose him down and be like, get your shit together.
Is he even good at his job?
Oh, he's pretty terrible.
He's the worst at his job.
Like pretty bad, right?
What if he called bad cop?
Like a lot of people get murdered.
Yeah. If he made it up and sleeping with
he keeps on fucking
suspects and with his psychiatrist.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm surprised he doesn't like make a move on George Zunza.
Yeah, that's like that scene where like Gus starts freaking out in the bar and like saying pussy a bunch. It's like I almost view that as like a manic breakdown because he's like, who the fuck are you? You have to stop doing this. Stop sleeping with everyone. He also has the exact same seduction technique in every scene, which is just clenched jaw, unbroken eye contact, very slowly walking towards them.
Sure.
Like it's just a very deliberate shark in the water until he gets up next to them, and then he's just like...
I think that the key to his appeal is that he's kind of dumb. And like he's in all of these roles, there's something a little bit kind of charming or helpless about someone who's that dumb. Like even his like the fuck of the century line, like he's like, I thought she was the fuck of the century. What did you think?
Right.
There's something really like, what do you think?
Yeah, he is dumb enough that to walk out of very wild sex with Sharon Stone naked, walk into the bathroom, Roxy walks in, he just sort of reacts like, oh, hey, what's up? Like not like, what is this? What is this? You're watching? Like, what's this whole situation?
Well, also, when you get to the later scene, a little bit later with Sharon Stone, when he's like, I mean, that was the greatest of all time, right? And she was like, fucking idiot.
It was fine.
That was sex, whatever.
It was on top of you.
Yeah,
like, what, this blows your mind?
That's true. That scene is perfect.
Yeah, she's really good in that scene.
She's so Steve for just being like kind of clueless.
Yeah, it was a start.
But so Sharon Stone, we should say, you know, she's in Total Recall, which I think she's so good in.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
really good in that.
such a funny, like like version of this, like sort of proto version of this performance, where she's giving, like, her character is giving such a great performance. But like apart from that, she was a nobody.
She was pretty much unknown. And Douglas signs on to this and says the only way the movie's going to work is if we have someone of equal stature playing Catherine Trammell. Right. He fought really hard to get an A-lister. He was really keen on Julia Roberts playing this part, which would have been a nightmare.
Probably would have been really bad. That's like Hook era Julia Roberts.
Like, and I like Julia Roberts, but I also think this role cannot be played by someone who comes to the screen with any baggage prior to this movie. Imagine
Julia Roberts in this movie. Yeah. But she was never going to do it.
No, every actress turns it down.
She had made Sleeping with the Enemy the year before, which is sort of like a kind of bad watchable version of...
Sure.
Like, it's a... whatever. It's like a sort of R-rated thriller, I guess.
Every established actress they offer it to turns it down point blank.
Yeah.
Just goes, I don't want to do this nudity. I don't want to play this character.
Right.
You know, any of this. So Verhoeven, who had worked with Sharon Stone, goes, I think I know who it is. And Douglas was like, I'm not. She's a nobody. You can't cast her. She's not going to be able to hold the screen against me. And had to do like vigorous screen testing to finally get him to sign off on her. Right. And it's insane to think, like, this movie wouldn't exist if it wasn't her.
No way.
It wouldn't work.
No. It would be shitty.
Yeah. And even watching it
would
now,
be about like an asshole cop. Like, that's it. It would just sort of be like a weird,
Right. She was like, Sharon Stone exists to be able to play this one role in this movie. Not that she hasn't given other good performances, but like, this is why she was put on this earth.
She's really good though. Whenever I've seen her in anything, she's really good. And then she's also like, has that same echo of like, he echoes his father in this sort of inadequate way. Yeah. And then, but I was thinking recently, I don't know, you guys probably haven't seen the new movie that's about Gloria Graham, have you?
No, but I mean, I'm excited. That what's it called?
The Film Stars Don't Die in Liverpool.
Yeah.
It's okay, but somehow Annette Bening doesn't quite get the Gloria Graham thing. They say that she always plays the tart, and it's more like she's doing like a Marilyn Monroe or something. Sure. She gives this kind of little girl breathy kind of thing. And it's like the whole movie can kind of only conceive if the tardy blonde is like this Marilyn Monroe. And I was like, that's wrong. What was it that Gloria Graham was doing? And there's something...
Gloria Graham was kind of dirty.
She's kind of dirty. Yeah. She's kind of knowing. And there's something kind of scratchy about her voice, not just girly. And I feel like this is something Sharon Stone really gets too.
She might have been good. I mean... Yeah. I saw she's in The Disaster Artist. You know, she has that one scene,
really good.
Which is a really funny scene.
Yeah, I was angry that she wasn't in the rest of the movie.
Anytime I see her, I'm like, oh, I'd love a Stone comeback. Yeah, she makes like tons of movies, but they're all like direct to video type things. Like,
she's, I mean, a good actress, and she also is one of those people who is fluent in camp when she needs to be. And I think it ended up hurting her reputation because sometimes people thought she went too big and thought she couldn't control it, that she didn't know what she's doing. But anytime she's big in a movie, I think it's very cannily done. I mean, she's very aware and she's playing to the size of the film.
It's interesting that Basic Instinct 2 literally killed her career. Now, if you're looking at her resume, like that's sort of the last big movie she was in. Yeah. I guess that was her being like, well, I guess it's time to make this
because maybe Basic Instinct killed her career. It both made and killed her career.
Kind of did. Because, obviously... After this, she has Casino, and that's when she gets her Oscar nomination. Right. That's her sort of
she's good in that.
Right, where she's like, I'm just going to like amplify.
Now I'm legitimate. Right.
And that's where Scorsese from everyone is just being like more, like just as big as you can go. Like this is the Coke movie.
Like Sharon Stone is, if nothing else, capable of not holding anything back.
Like my whole take on Casino is that's Martin Scorsese like finally exercising his cocaine demons. You know what I mean? Where he's like, let's just put it out there. This is what we're really like when we're doing that.
Right. But then she has a really bad run of like Diabolique.
Well, even before then, because after this is Sliver, which is sort of
the bad version of this.
Exactly.
Movie. Yeah.
And then Last Action Hero. Oh, that's just a cameo. Then The Specialist, which is another bad version of this movie. Yeah. Quick and the Dead, which I kind of wish was a better movie.
I've never seen it.
The Raimi movie,
Western?
the Western, and then Casino, and then Diabolique. It's like all these where they're finding the right kind of Sharon Stone projects.
None of them are good. Yeah,
but they're kind of like ripping off Basic Instinct. They're ripping off that vibe.
I think you're onto something though, where like she exists as this really interesting neo-noir type, right?
Yeah.
Where like all the peak noir films are still made in like an era where you could not be overtly sexual. It always had to be subtextual. You had to like toe the line of that Hays Code. And so the power of someone like Gloria Graham comes from like inferring as much as you can without actually showing something or saying something.
Yeah.
And then Sharon Stone is that character with all the subtext removed. Like she's the fully weaponized version of the like femme fatale.
Weaponized is exactly right.
Right. She's like very aggressive and maximalist. And yeah, just super violent, super sexual. Like there's no double entendre. She's just like saying everything out in the open.
Well, another person who was like that is Dorothy Malone, who was in this movie. And I think the fact that I saw this movie after I had seen, when I saw this movie, I had seen way more Dorothy Malone movies than I had seen Verhoeven movies.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so to me, like she signaled exactly what was going on with this movie.
This is like her last movie, right? Like I think I think it is. And I almost want more of her because it's such a good idea to have her as this.
A good idea.
Like the echo of the past noir movies, like the previous femme fatale is like her buddy.
Like so literally like she was her character Hazel Dopkins.
Hazel Dopkins, yes.
Like murdered someone in 1956.
Right.
And like, which was kind of the peak of Dorothy Malone's career when she was doing those Cirque movies and I just love that. I feel like that's such a great echo of and she's like another one, like The Big Sleep. I think Kim Morgan said something about like The Big Sleep is a movie about a sexy book clerk or something because she's the sexy book clerk who like dominates it and she kind of takes it to the edge actually as far as like that sleaziness and in a lot of her performances, which I appreciate.
Her official credit in The Big Sleep is Acme Bookshop Proprietress, which is a really funny credit. I just wanted to shout that out.
But it's also like...
sexy book clerk. That'd be great. Right at the beginning, like, the little credits list.
The iconic thing of this movie is that, like, and I think it's iconic not just because it was, like, unprecedented at the time, but also just because of, like, the semiotic power of what it's saying, is that, like, whereas up until now you have people, like, making double entendres or, like, the way they smoke the cigarette is as sexual as you can get. This is a movie where someone literally like uncrosses their legs and it's like there's nothing being held back anymore.
Right.
I was going to say, and that's unusual in some ways, but it's also, I mean, I think that her, she just later disowned that. She said she
was
later,
yes.
She said she didn't know it was like against, she was, in a way without consent, like she didn't know it was being, and I am so, I totally I believe women, but I kind of doubt that she didn't know what was going on because there's the whole line where she's like, I don't wear underwear.
Yes.
Right. There's
it's set up by like other scenes and reference after the fact.
Right. Well, we see her dress,
and
she's naked and just puts on a dress.
Yeah.
And then there's the thing, and like it's so
the dress that she's going to wear in that scene.
That's
you see her not wearing underwear. Right? Exactly. Yeah. Right.
And it's so obviously crucial, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny because I remember I had heard a story maybe before some interview with Verhoeven where they weren't sure if they were going to put the shot in because they were like, this is obviously salacious stuff, right? Like so, and in the editing room, apparently the editor was like, "Well, here's what it looks like," and he was just like, "Yeah, that's we should have this in the movie."
I also,
but I mean,
maybe she didn't know. I mean, I'm sure she didn't know. She didn't know what it was going to look like. She knew this was part of the script.
Her argument that she made, which she made when she was making Basic Instinct, when she was like on the press tour for that. That's when she brought all this up. Was that he had asked her to take off the underwear because it was like it looked bad on camera or something. Like there was like a sheen that was like, and that she didn't know it was going to be a shot, like, you know what I mean? But even it's odd to think about it, as you say, because it seems so inherent to the whole first act of the movie is that she does that.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Also,
I mean,
it's not like,
I guess you could just have the sort of like she uncrosses her legs, reverse shot, them all freaking out.
Yeah,
reverse,
that's the thing. Like within the body of the film, she's not wearing underwear,
right?
And also she as an actress so deliberately plays that movie with that movement with so much authority of the crossing and uncrossing of the legs.
Sure,
that it's like, how does she not?
Do you charge me for smoking? That's another Esther House classic.
Yeah. The other thing is, it's like I wonder if more of her regret stems from what that moment became.
Well, obviously, it's
you know?
a defining part of her career, right?
Yeah. Her career like now exists in the shadow of this one moment, this one part of her body.
Totally, and it works in the film so well,
100%,
and it like it just works, and it also works in the film where she's in power of this moment, you know, and it's very like.
I mean, that's why I love that scene so much, where it's the cops are basically like, so let me get this straight. You just had sex with the guy and you're not in love with him, and she's like, yeah, we were just fucking, and they're like. And you enjoyed this. You enjoyed the sex with the man for an extended period of like a year and a half. You were having sex with him, you know. And she's like,
And Wayne Knight in the performance that should have won Best Supporting Actor that year.
God, sweat from these guys.
These are the greatest reaction shots I think I've ever seen in a film.
You know, we talk about how Verhoeven cast these like nerdy U.S. Treasury agent looking guys as his villains in like RoboCop and Total Recall. And in this, he's just got such an eye for those like schlubby middle-aged cops.
Chelsea Ross.
Oh God, with the sort of, you know, sweat pouring off him and like the button downs. Chelsea Ross, Bruce A. Young.
What's his name from the X-Files?
Mitch Pileggi, and Daniel Von Bargen, who is the guy who
was a great actor. Yeah,
gets in the face of.
You know the story that like Spielberg saw Basic Instinct in theaters when he was prepping Jurassic Park.
Oh, and he just loved the look of Wayne Knight, right? Yeah,
no, because he said take that shot of him reacting in Basic Instinct and then make the reverse shot a T-Rex and we have ourselves a hit picture. It's like, that's how I want him to be cowering in fear.
He had such a look, Wayne Knight.
He downplays it so much though, because it'd be so obvious, especially with like Verhoeven's like comically inept, like schlubby, pudgy, balding, whatever, pencil pushing types in these movies. Wayne Knight plays his reaction shot so seriously. Like it's so grim and dire. And he's doing so little, but his eyes are just like broken.
He's got big bulgy.
Yeah, and then the sweat is so good. And he just keeps on repeating that move over and over again. Like almost every single close-up in that interrogation scene is like a crazy fast push into their face.
I just love
regardless of who it is.
It's really true. The pushes are so good.
Yeah.
The pushing was she leans forward and pushes into her, and they're sort of like, it's so wonderfully choreographed.
But he keeps on repeating that same movement over and over again. So like you cut to a Sharon Stone, it's a fast push in. Then you cut to Douglas, it's a little further away, but you push in just as fast. And he just keeps on like resetting and pushing.
I also like that it's a shooting gallery for some reason. Like that's where they're interviewing her, because you see the little outlines in the background and
the fucking lighting on that set is unbelievable. This is Jan de Bont, like right before he decamps and becomes his own filmmaker.
Yep. Because we haven't mentioned, because he doesn't shoot RoboCop or Total Recall, but he was Verhoeven's original guy. He's Dutch too. You know, he shot a lot of the Dutch movies with him. Yeah. He also shot Roar, which is funny to think about. You know, the movie where they like made Tippi Hedren fight a lion or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think Jan de Bont got to Hollywood earlier because he made Cujo and All the Right Moves.
Yeah.
And then so this is the one movie they make together in Hollywood. Apart from Flesh and Blood.
Jan de Bont had like a very serious injury on Roar.
Jan de Bont?
Yeah, specifically he almost died on the film, I think.
A lion lifted his scalp, requiring 220 stitches.
Thank you. Have you seen Roar?
No.
Have you seen Roar?
I still haven't.
I wanted to see it when it sort of did the rounds like a couple of years ago. Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, Tippi Hedren like remarried this man who was obsessed with lions.
Right.
And thought he had to make a movie about humans and lions.
You dig this movie, Ben.
Coexisting. Oh, Ben, you would fucking love this movie.
Yeah? Why?
He like made this movie out of his own pocket over like 5 years, starring his new wife and his new stepdaughter.
Oh my God.
About them coexisting with lions, and they just kept on getting mauled.
They just had real lions.
Wait, they got mauled?
Yeah, like all the cast and the crew just kept getting mauled, and he would shut it down, and then 6 months later he'd raise more money and make it like shoot another 2 weeks or whatever.
Mauled is such a word.
Yeah, but they really they got mauled on that.
It's the one with Tippi Hedren and Melanie Griffith, right?
They're both in it. Right. Yes. Yeah, it's fascinating.
Those images, they just are playing around with these big lions, like they're house cats or something, and they're so...
They like lived in a Hollywood Hills mansion with giant lions.
It's sort of like Grizzly Man-esque, where it's like man has crossed a line here.
Right.
Yes.
It's fascinating because it's like watching the movie that Timothy Treadwell thought he was making in Grizzly Man.
Right.
Like Roar's the movie that like doesn't acknowledge how dangerous they are because he wants to make this like peaceful, harmonic coexistence thing, but there's still footage where it's like that lion is trying to kill that person.
There's another great lion movie called The Lion, and it's from the 60s. It's with William Holden and
Oh
Capucine.
yeah. I've heard of this. I've never.
It's also really creepy, crossing the line. I think
it's a Jack Cardiff movie.
It's Jack Cardiff. I love his directing. His films he's directed are
Cardiff
so
directed
bizarre.
it.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
He directed a ton of movies.
Right.
Yeah.
A ton, and they're
But they're
weird.
mostly pulpy stuff because he was such a Tony
like
high
Sons
class.
and Lovers. That's the one I've seen.
Didn't he do Girl on a Motorcycle?
Yeah.
Yes.
And then he did this amazing movie about circus freaks and that eat the plants, eat them and stuff. And I can't remember what it's called.
This
but
sounds awesome.
No, it's so good. But so is The Lion because it's like it's about like Capucine and William Holden have a daughter together. They're divorced. And they are living in Africa, and their daughter is like 12 or something, and kind of like tomboyish. And she falls in love, literally, with a lion. She's having this like romance with a lion.
Okay, this is the second human-animal romance film you brought up today. So clearly, you have some sort of like book to write here.
And
yeah.
I recently realized I think my favorite subgenre of movie is human falls in love with something that isn't human.
That is a pretty, if you can pull that off.
Yeah. I'm big into those. So I'm taking notes on all these recommendations.
It's called The Mutations, the plant
Mutations.
movie. That was his last movie with Donald Pleasance and no one else.
I really recommend it.
Cool.
Okay. This other film is the Africa Mercenaries movie.
Oh, yes. I just had that one. Dark of the Sun, I believe it's called.
Incredible.
Good title.
Yes.
Totally incredible.
Set in the Congo, starring Rod Taylor.
Ding dong.
Do you want to get it?
Yeah, I'll get it because I need to go to the bathroom.
Okay.
Hello.
Hello. I'm David.
I am autobiography.
Okay. What is? I see.
You're of course familiar with the film The Page Master,
Sure. Yeah, I saw The Page Master when I was a kid.
in which sentient books represent an entire subgenre of literature.
Sure, it was like horror or whatever.
Like
yeah.
fantasy,
Right,
adventure.
Uh-huh. Your autobiography.
Right. Cut me out of the film. Thought I was a little dry,
You seem a little dry. No offense.
a little narcissistic.
You're very self-obsessed. Right.
Right. And I love listening to myself talk about myself.
Okay.
But for once, I'd love to listen to someone else.
Oh, you want it like an audiobook.
I would love an audio, but I don't want jib jab. I don't want a conversation. Give me a real piece of literature in my ears.
Okay. All right. Well, what do you think of Audible?
Sounds good. Continue.
Well, this is a company, Audible, that's offering our listeners a free audiobook with a 30-day trial membership. If you just go to audible.com/check and you browse the unmatched selection of audio programs, you can download a title for free and start listening right away. It's that easy.
Okay, but what? I mean, it sounds like it'd probably be difficult for me to find a device that would be compatible with this. Would it work on my phone?
It works on your phone.
Okay, what about from my car?
Sure.
A tablet?
Yeah.
What about at home on Amazon Echo, a great company?
Yes, I think that you could easily listen to an audiobook no matter what. Audio shows, news, comedy, magazines, newspapers, business information.
How does this work on a month-to-month basis?
Well, if you go to audible.com /check or text check to 500-500 to get started.
I like options.
You get a 30-day trial membership. And you get a free title to start listening to right away.
Right. Now, I've heard a rumor. Can you confirm or deny? Audible members get a credit every month, good for any audiobook in the store, regardless of price, and unused credits roll over to the next month.
That's amazing. How did you know that?
I just had a feeling. It was a rumor. I heard it from a bird. Now, if I didn't like my audiobook, can I exchange it with no questions asked?
Yeah, of course. This is Audible we're talking about here.
And are the books mine to keep, or are they going to take them back from me in the midnight?
They belong to you.
Oh, I like the sound of that. I like the sound of that.
Griffin, you coming back in here anytime?
Hey, yeah, I finished up my poop. How's it going?
We're just talking about Audible.
Oh, Audible.
Yeah.
I did an audiobook that's available on Audible.
You're telling me that our listeners with our promo code can go get a free audiobook that you read?
Yeah, it's called The Impossible Fortress.
Okay.
By Jason Rekulak.
Okay.
Rekulak. I knew how to say it when I recorded it.
You had to know.
It's a coming of age story about video game programming.
Oh, yeah, I remember when you were working
in
on
the
that.
80s. And I'll say this to our listeners. If you've ever wanted to hear me recite a bunch of long-form code, boy, this is a good use of your free audiobook.
All right. Well, I'll just remind you, go to audible.com/check or text check to 500-500 and you can get this free trial.
Is there an option for Audible to slide into my DMs like Goodfield, or is it only text or website?
Text or website.
Okay, well, maybe they'll work on that.
Okay, we've drifted.
We drifted.
Yeah,
this is a tangent.
We drift.
That's what we do.
Also, this movie is not short, but plot light, I would say. Like, or I guess there's a lot of plot in it, but it's sort of in that noir way where it doesn't really matter.
It's
like,
also
who cares?
a movie
like,
where there aren't too many scenes, but all the scenes are very long because they're all scenes about tension, intimidation,
and sort
seduction.
of like cat and mouse.
Right,
like, who has the where's the balance of power here?
Every scene is a power balance scene in this film.
So she has, man killed with ice pick, right?
Right.
Cops investigate ice pick murder.
Right. He's a rock star who later became a philanthropist and a club owner.
We've all been there. And
we've all had sex with this guy. We all have one of these guys in our history.
For sure.
Totally.
We all have a cat person and we all have a guy like this.
And she wrote a book which describes this exact murder.
Right. Down to the specifics of him being a rock star who then became a civilly important.
Silk, tying his hands with silk.
All of it. So they immediately go like, well, open shut. That's it, right?
Well, no. What I like is they immediately go like, fuck, she wrote this fucking book so we couldn't accuse her of this crime. It's such a good alibi.
Yeah, right.
Which I like that. I like that they're aware of that. And
but so they all think it has to be her, but she's one step ahead of us. We're fucked.
Right. They bring her in. Douglas goes to her house.
Right.
And then it is literally like you're watching a mouse, but like a really disheveled, coked up mouse, like walk into a trap, right? Like that's what's
right. But like you go from the initial setup, it's like okay, the most typical version.
And
of
first
this
he
kind
meets
of
Roxy too, I should, and then she diverts him to the
right. The most typical setup of this kind of noir movie is like very rich, powerful man dies. The girlfriend is the biggest suspect. Okay, money must have been at play. But then when they go to her house is even bigger. Money isn't an object. Mm-hmm. They get to the door. They think they got Roxy, who seems a little skittish. No, that's her girlfriend.
Exactly. They have when we first see a woman, it's the double indemnity shot where the legs and you, but
on the staircase.
But it's not her. It's her girlfriend.
Right. It's a total
played
mystery.
by Leilani Sorrell. I don't know her. I feel she was married to Miguel Ferrer.
Oh,
that's
for 12 years.
Okay.
Huh. They divorced.
Who's her? Then is her son? Who's her son?
Lucas Ferrer and Rafael Ferrer.
Okay, interesting.
She has.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. I mean, she looks kind of like Sharon Stone.
Yeah.
Like, right? But like not quite. Obviously she's just styled to look a little
and
like
she's
her.
charismatic, but not at the same level of like when Stone walks, like when you get the first shot of Stone and she's just so fucking in control.
She's got such a great face. Why is Sharon Stone so magnetic? I'm trying to figure it out.
I don't know.
I think it's her voice, especially.
Voice is great.
Her voice is scratchy. I mean, she's totally beautiful and but it's like there's something just rough and scratchy and kind of great about her.
I think she's one of those people where she just is so good at being on camera and it transcends just like being photogenic, but she is so aware of like how she moves, her rhythms, her energy. She seems to me like one of those actors who can like feel the lighting on her face. Like you hear about those people who are like, can you get a fill there? And it's like, how did they know?
right.
Like Cate Blanchett's apparently like that, where she like adjusts lighting based on like feeling the energy. Yeah, and you hear that and you're just like, God, that's fucking badass. But she seems like one of those people where she's just like so in control of her own screen image and so aware of how she translates onto this medium. And she's so still in this movie. She's got so many amazing scenes where she's just sort of like staring off into the distance, pretty static. But she's like completely captivating. And she just always is high status. Like even in Total Recall, where she's with fucking peak Arnold Schwarzenegger, who's 7 times bigger than her. Every time
and they
she's
shouldn't
on
make
screen,
any sense. But she's like, oh, honey, how was work? And he's like, it was fine. I'm sitting here right now. I like to sit, and you're like, what the fuck is he's not we talked about it
every time they're in a scene together, she feels high status and he looks like a fucking doofus.
He does look like a doofus.
And similarly, every time she's on screen with Michael Douglas in this movie, he just looks like a sad old man. Like she seems so. He has to be like 50, right?
He's born in 44.
45?
So yeah, he's in his mid 40s.
Yeah.
And she was born. Yeah, she's a lot younger than him. Obviously, she's 14 years younger than him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she's the age of the character, which is like 30 or something.
Yeah.
She's a famous novelist, I guess, but she writes like airplane thrillers. Like the books don't look good.
No.
It's like a lot of murdering to do just for like a shitty book. I mean, and it's true. I'm literally judging a book by its cover.
Yes. But she is incredibly successful. Yes. Probably
very successful,
exclusively through Hudson News sales, but she is incredibly successful.
So you're from the Bay Area. This is like Marin County or something? Like what is this?
Yeah, it's Marin County where I'm actually from. And so this is another thing that the location, so when they go to her house, it's I think like Pacific Heights, which is always the house in all of the noirs. They're always in the same location. And his apartment too is the same as like Humphrey Bogart's and Kearny Street. And these sort of like San Francisco is such a small city that all of these locations are used over and over again. It's so photogenic, but it's also really small.
Right.
And then when they go to her country place, it's Stinson Beach. I think that they actually filmed it in Carmel, though. I did look it up. They filmed it in Carmel.
I know Carmel because Clint Eastwood was the mayor.
He was the mayor. Carmel's great. But it was supposed to be Stinson Beach, which is in Marin County. And that's another noir thing. There's I don't know, have you guys seen the Joan Crawford movie Set in Fear?
No.
The second one?
Yeah.
And I think that's, what is it, 1950?
It's like early 50s, I think.
Is it 1952?
52. Jack Palance.
Yeah. And Gloria Graham, who we were just talking about. Right. And there's the same, there's a lot of echoes of that. It's another like house on the cliff.
Gorgeous.
And you can look down and you see it. There's almost the shot. Some of the shots are complete, like almost like quotes. And so this movie is so good at that, of getting those San Francisco noir
touchstones, right?
Yeah,
and being,
but also a cowboy bar.
Yeah, and the cowboy bar is just thrown in. Oh, and then another Marin County noir is Dark Passage.
Right.
Oh,
it starts out in Marin, and they drive. So when they're driving on those curvy roads, it was reminding me of Dark Passage, which is really similar.
This is also it's a color film, obviously, but it is so shadow based. It is so contrast based. And the amount of like a glimmer of light coming through the blinds, like vertical shadows on their face stuff in this movie, is like he emulates the look really well without it feeling like a pastiche.
Yeah.
He finds a way to modernize all that sort of like visual language of the noir.
It's weird though, because it feels very, I kept in my notes, I was like, oh, it's so 80s, but it's early 90s.
Yeah,
but it somehow gets that 80s
but it's the tail
look,
end,
and the cocaine and the But it's also funny because this movie I found out came out the same year. This played the same Cannes Film Festival as Fire Walk with Me.
Sure,
oh, okay.
Right, 92.
Yes. And so those are like, I don't know, one feels very more towards a little more towards the 90s to me, and this feels very much stuck in the 80s, or almost like a summary, like Verhoeven, who's been there, being like, "Oh, I'm gonna make cocaine noir."
This feels like a hangover from the '90s movie, or from the '80s rather.
Yeah,
it feels like a '90s set '80s hangover film, where it's like Michael Douglas is like the remaining coke boogers that we have to like.
Well, right,
clear out
and he
of our
literally
nostrils.
like basically washes the coke boogers.
That really gets to his essence, though.
Right?
So grossed out.
He's a human coke booger and a phenomenal actor.
There's that shot of him, that shot of him that I think is, it's the shot of him that I think is really funny that is included.
Yeah.
After the incredibly rough sex scene with Jean Tripplehorn, where he's dressing, where she's sick of him immediately and like goes into her room and slams the door, and he dresses, he's like flat on his back, and he pulls his pants on by kind of like doing the worm, he kind of sort of like goes like, what? Where it's like, oh yeah, this guy's like a fucking loser, right? Like, I mean, like this is him after he's done this like thing, where he's just like, oh, well, here I am, no pants on, yep.
Well, he's like a guy who like knows what to do in the extreme situations, and in between is
doesn't know how to behave at
totally
all.
on anchor.
Like, can you imagine this guy like eating a bowl of
function.
Fruit Loops? Like, you know what I mean? Like, or he's just like, I'm hungry.
Yeah. Right. He knows how to strut into a room.
This is a guy who orders a double blackjack when he wants to like start drinking again. Do you guys know what a blackjack is?
I don't know what a double blackjack
Whiskey
is.
And like fucking, I looked it up. I've never heard of it.
Is it like the speedball of liquor?
I think it's whiskey and Kahlua in a cocktail shaker, like with like lemon juice. It sounds disgusting.
Gross, actually.
Yeah, that's awful.
And like that's what he's like at his bar. That's his drink. Give me a double blackjack.
Yeah, right. And everyone's like, don't fucking do that. You dummy.
Anyway, so let's get into that. Right.
Yeah.
So because after all of that, the initial where they bring her in for questioning and all, the sort of the cat and mouse game has begun.
Right.
You have sorry, what's her name? Beth. Right. Beth Garner. Right, is psychiatrist.
Who he has a relationship with. You start to get this backstory of what he's been going through. The wife's suicide, his addiction issues to several different substances.
He's going through some shit.
He's going through some shit.
She is a total unknown. This is her debut film.
First film.
She was Ben Stiller's girlfriend. Not to tag her with that, but they have been dating for a long time. She was like a stage actress.
And Stiller was such a early 90s boy as this poster child of the Gen X that I think they were kind of a cool hip couple.
For sure.
This is her first movie, and then she kind of runs the table for 5 years after this.
Runs the table?
She's doing big shit.
I mean, The Firm, Reality Bites, and Waterworld are her next
Reality
three
Bites,
movies.
She's barely in. Yeah,
right. She's barely in.
But Waterworld is certainly that was a huge part for her.
And then Sliding Doors, but she's the other woman.
Then that's what's weird. Then right after
Very
Waterworld,
Bad Things,
she always
Mickey
becomes low on the call sheet.
She's really good in Big Love, which I enjoyed her in.
She's always Jean Tripplehorn, though. I've heard people refer to this movie.
What a face she's got.
She's totally beautiful. Yeah. She's so beautiful, but it's almost like she's not, in Zoolander when there's Billy Zane and Billy Zane is Billy Zane. She's kind of like Jean Tripplehorn. Is she?
Yeah.
She also has it's such a wonderful name to think about. Tripplehorn. What is, so I guess
her name is so distinctive. Her face is so distinctive.
Yeah.
The era in which she was really prominent is so distinctive that she kind of sticks out of anything she's in.
Yeah, I saw it. Someone tweeted something about this movie that I was totally in shock. I hadn't seen it for a while, and they're like, when you're not sure who did it, whether it was Catherine Trammell or Jean Tripplehorn.
Yeah.
And there's so many things about that. But
he's kidding.
Okay.
Yeah, no, spoil away.
So there's so many interesting things about that. Well, first of all, I was in shock because I'm like, whoa, I did not remember it being as to me it was really clear.
Right.
Even though it's totally I have a very clear point of view about this. And I didn't, and I did not think that it was that debatable. But also just, the Catherine Trammell is such a character. It's such a good noir name. And then there's Jean Tripplehorn,
right.
And it's but that's also because
Dr. Beth Garner, it's.
I mean, that's also because we're not sure who she is exactly, too.
Yes. I mean, I do think it's hard, even though the crux of the plot is, did she do it? And they do have this whole flim-flam with, but actually, Jean Tripplehorn used to have blonde hair, and they slept together in college, and she might have killed some. Where they're no, it could be her, and you never buy it. For a second.
Really? I'm the opposite. I totally think Jean Tripplehorn did it.
I don't buy it.
I totally think. I have no doubt. To me, it's completely Jean Tripplehorn is she's so creepy.
Well, she is creepy.
She is creepy.
I just don't think she has the guts.
Hot take.
Yeah.
I know you haven't listened to this podcast. But on episode 1, we solved Serial conclusively. We gave the answer that America wanted.
So way back when,
which is they both did it. Mm-hmm. And I think this movie's the same.
Oh, you think they both did it?
I think there's a Jay and a non thing kind of going on.
I just always walk out of this.
That's what I think. I think they both did. I think neither story makes sense if it's just one of them without collaboration from the other.
Wow. See, I really think Jean Tripplehorn because she's just such a creep. And I just feel like that's an identifier. And she gets into I brought up this article I wrote a few years ago called Persona Swap. And that gets this is very noir, this movie, but it also gets into this persona swap movie where there's a blonde and a brunette.
And there's a transference of power.
A transference of power and personality. And one is really copying the other, single white female.
Big revival in the 90s. Yeah, single white female. And Hand That Rocks the Cradle kind of tiptoes into that.
Hand That Rocks the Cradle is more like a Fatal Attraction movie where it's what if the worst possible thing happened after you did a mundane thing? Fatal Attraction, what if you slept with another lady? Oh, she boils your daughter's bunny. Yeah. Hand That Rocks the Cradle, what if you got a babysitter? No, you don't want to hire a babysitter. Just never leave your home. Just don't leave.
Yeah,
sorry. But it did. There were a lot in the 90s, and then even Mulholland Drive, and there's the blonde, and
the best one.
And so this to me just reminded me. So and Jean Tripplehorn is so the bad guy in those roles in those movies, and I really bought everything about her. But I mean, of course, there's the last scene and the last shot. But to me, I am so moved by Sharon Stone and by Catherine Trammell that I totally don't think she did it.
But do you think she's now like, maybe I should do it? Like, it's.
My feeling then is I know this isn't quite logical, but just let me go with my heart.
I'm with you. I love this read.
So you sound like Sarah Koenig falling in love with a knot. You're going to talk about how soulful her eyes are.
No, but I feel like there's another movie that in this last rewatch it was reminding me of. Have you guys ever seen the movie Bell, Book and Candle, the Richard Quine movie?
Yes. It was a common answer trivia. Yes. If you remember that. But anyway,
really?
We became very good friends doing movie trivia night of Videology, and we always would get smarted by that one because it would come up over and over again.
They would do so many witch categories because Maggie loved witch movies.
Yeah,
and so Bell, Book and Candle was a favorite.
Oh,
yes. But anyway.
At a certain point, both of us were just like, fuck, why didn't we watch Bell, Book and Candle after the last time? Like, we know it's going to come up every 3 weeks.
That's it's Jimmy Stewart and Kim Novak.
Yeah,
right?
made the same year as Vertigo.
Right.
So, I mean, obviously, this movie has a lot of echoes of Vertigo, and so that movie does too. And they're both like not quite Vertigo, but there's like in that movie, she's this like it's the same thing. Instead of being like the perfect woman, she's the perfect woman because. And instead of her power being her summa cum laude pussy, her power is that she's like literally a witch and that she put a love spell over Jimmy Stewart and like this sort of thing. But it's the same vibe, like the same sort of blonde coolness. And like, I have this power over you that you're both like attracted to and totally scared of. But then at the end she becomes vulnerable and there's the tears at the end too, which is in the similar place. And to me, it's like, well, yeah, like she's like wants to kill him because he wants her to be a stay-at-home mom. And she's like,
true. He's talking a whole mess at the end there where he's like, let's see, maybe we'll have some kids. And it's like, kids?
Some basic shit.
You don't
what are you
want
talking
to have
about?
children?
Totally. And
you're going to shoot them by mistake like 8 months in.
Neither of you are fit to be parents.
And that's very Bell, Book and Candle. At the end, she ends up really boring and basic and terrible. Right. And it's almost like sad. And so I feel like to me, I always read this as like, yeah, so she's ready to stab him at the end, but that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with all the murders.
Not to side tangent off to one of our old punching bags. I just remember how fucking bullshit is it that moment in Suicide Squad where Enchantress sees all their fantasies and Harley's claims is that she lives in the suburbs with the Joker and they have a baby?
Yeah. It's terrible. We talked about it at the time.
I haven't even seen that, but that is so gross.
It's reprehensible.
It's literally the witch character like goes into all their deepest fantasies. She tries to
like bewitch them by showing them what they want.
And the way they get into that sequence is her turning on the normal setting on a washer dryer, and then it pans out and it's her and the Joker, and they don't have makeup and they have a little baby, and they're in like a somewhere that's green like house.
Normal.
Yeah,
I can't believe
normal.
They went that far.
Right.
Because I don't know if you know this, usually the Joker is twisted.
Twisted. Agree with everything that you say.
But you don't agree with me because you disagree with everything I say, actually. Because you think that a different person.
Oh, no, right. So getting back to this, I think Beth doesn't have the guts. That's my whole argument on Beth is that she is like the sort of like wishy-washy version of Catherine. She was obsessed with Catherine, but she like, she looks so shocked when again, spoiler alert, it's a joke, when she gets shot at the end. And so like that to me, I'm like, she doesn't look like, how did you figure this out? She literally looks like, why'd you shoot me?
It's so De Palma, that ending, isn't it?
It is.
With the like poncho and everything. It's really great.
Also with the, throughout the hair, like obscure, the sort of mysterious
the
female
scene
villain.
That makes the question really interesting for me is the one where Douglas goes to see Catherine after Rocky has died.
Yeah.
And she's like a mess. An absolute mess.
Right.
And up until this point in the movie, she has always been in complete control of what she's projecting onto everyone else around her. And this like insane confidence to be like, I bet you think I killed her. Like just openly baiting them into being like, I know everything you're thinking. You think I'm guilty.
Yeah, they have the whole, it's like a chess conversation.
Right.
They're like, well, they told me, I said that you wouldn't want a lawyer. Why'd you say I wouldn't want a lawyer? The
lie detector, leaving the clippings of the magazine, the newspaper articles about Douglas, like all of it. She's like openly inviting skepticism and fear about her, right? And then this moment where she's just like bundled up in like a blanket, right? And like a big sweater, looking out the window, just like broken.
Yeah.
And whereas before she's been kind of flippant when she talks about like the people in her life who have died in this kind of like arched eyebrow way. now she's just like, I fucking hate it. Like, everyone I know dies. Like, I'm just this person.
I mean, that's obviously the scene where you're supposed to be like, oh, maybe this she's for real. Like,
and because of that scene, you either have to go like, okay, she is the Joker. Like, she's like an incredible like arch nemesis who's capable of like such extreme emotional manipulation that this is part of her plan, or that she's like this weird, somewhat victim of circumstance who has now had to own it in a certain way.
Sure.
But I still I feel like,
She's got an ice pick in her bed. I mean, I don't know.
That's the thing.
I mean, I have an ice pick in my bed, but that's because I like to have ice in my bed.
You'd like to do some night picking.
It's kinky. She knows what he likes.
I do love how her sex move, though, is like that she just sort of goes like,
I'm about to stab you.
Let me just suddenly rush at you. You know?
Do you remember the DVD for this movie?
The DVD.
Because we talked about how like
the old sort of snap case.
Lionsgate was paid so much money to get Schwarzenegger to do the commentary for Total Recall.
Okay.
Because this was like the big blockbuster DVD era, and
that's the commentary where Arnold Schwarzenegger's like, I need this scene, I'm watching TV and it's great. Like, he just describes what's happening on screen.
And they paid him like $1 million to do the commentary because they were like, maybe this is the next big thing.
Sure. Right.
But they similarly released Basic Instinct around the same time, and the case was like clear blue lucite. So it looked like ice with no cover.
I do remember this, right?
With the disc visible inside, and it came packaged with an ice pick that was actually a pen.
Right.
And it's the weirdest like product
I do
ever.
Remember that?
Clear blue, visible disc, no other title on it, and then there's just an ice pick inside of it. So it's like the movies in ice. And then you have to
pick it out
with a pen, which is mightier than the ice pick. Like, it's such a mangled kind of thing.
I love it.
I just remember Entertainment Weekly like couldn't get over that. Like, look at how cool DVDs are now. This isn't your grandfather's home media format.
Well, I have the Blu-ray, and it's just
it's just a normal. It's just in a case or something. Yeah.
Have you guys seen Phantom Thread yet?
Yes. You haven't.
I haven't.
Right.
You haven't. But
I love Phantom Thread.
I was just thinking. It wasn't while I was watching it, but you know, when you say, "Why does she have an?" Okay, well, no. Okay, I won't say anything more. Actually,
oh really?
I know I won't, but because
it's not.
They have a similar
you can
attitude.
Handle a mild spoiler.
They just have a similar attitude towards sex.
Okay,
but they're very different. I think there's like no sex scenes in Phantom Thread, and these are some of the craziest, as you said, athletic. Right. But I think they're sexy.
Fair enough. Maybe I was too hard on the sex scenes. They're very sexy.
They're just extreme. Like I would be frightened if I were placed in a position like this.
You mean in your regular life, or to film a sex scene like this?
Both.
Sure.
Either.
Right. Yeah,
I read the sex scene, the main centerpiece sex scene, took 5 days to film, which just sounds like such a hassle to me.
I did want to say, I read this interview with Michael Douglas. I may have said this on the podcast before because it's one of my favorite quotes, where he was like, I hate filming sex scenes, which is nuts because he's filmed like 8
That's
billion.
like his bailiwick.
Right.
Yeah.
And he's like, because everyone who's watching a movie has had sex and no one's ever died.
Right.
So it's so much easier to die on screen because no one knows what that's like.
Sure.
So I love dying on screen. I'll do it anytime you want, but I hate sex because everyone's just like comparing it to whatever they do.
That's funny.
But
yeah, funny. that because you brought it up in comparison with Showgirls, but so ever since you brought that up, my mind's been going like, what happened with that pool scene? Like, what happened between the ice pick and the pool scene?
But you know what I mean? You can't like...
But it doesn't have focus, maybe, the
pool
scene.
Yes.
But it doesn't have the depth, which he needs.
Yes, the pool scene has absolutely no purpose whatsoever, except that they need to have sex, I guess, because they are beginning a sexual relationship.
Right.
But there's no, like, gravitas to the scene, really. No. And so I guess the idea is just it's another performance from her. But also, I guess,
as we've talked about previously, he always protests that he is not heightened or stylized in how he depicts sex or violence. And he's like, I'm just the only one who shows it the way it is.
Right.
Like, he considers both of these to be like Ken Loach approaches to like...
You go for it, Paulie.
I like it.
I love it.
I love it. I mean, I even like it in Showgirls, although in Showgirls it is just obviously funny. Like, you know, it's very hard to imagine.
But you know, the thing I think that makes this sex scene work is like a good action sequence. It has character beats within it. It has real performance moments. It's not just choreography, you know?
Yes, right. But it is choreographed. Sorry, go ahead.
Sure, but not just choreography.
Right.
In the first sex scene that we see, do you think was that Sharon Stone in a wig?
I think it is.
I think it is.
I think that is Sharon Stone. That's like, yes, that's her body.
I wasn't frame by framing it, but also even the moments when the hair sort of drifts away a little bit and you see elements of it.
Yeah.
Her bone structure on her face is so distinctive.
Yeah.
Anytime you catch a cheekbone, you're like, that has to be Sharon Stone, or hiring someone purposefully who looks so much like Sharon Stone.
Right.
That might be it too. I'm just curious if that's been revealed somewhere.
I don't know.
I don't know. I wonder how you'd find out. I'd certainly think it's her. But so we
the main sort of like incident that we haven't covered is about halfway through the movie when he goes to see her and she reveals that she's made him the character in her next book.
Well, yeah.
Doing all this research and starts revealing details that she shouldn't
about
know.
himself. Right.
Yes.
It's the scene at his apartment, I believe, is where she's doing this.
That comes later.
Okay.
It's the early one where he goes to her house
All right.
that ends with him leaving and her making out with Rocky in front of him.
Right.
And that's when he goes back to the precinct and flips out about like who gave her the file.
That's when he yells at Daniel von Bargen, however you say his name.
Yes.
And then Daniel von Bargen gets shot like 1 minute later, and he is considered the prime suspect.
Right.
Because he freaked out.
And he's found out that Gene Tripplehorn gave the file to him.
Right. But this is all film noir shit. Like where it's like there's just a lot of plot happening and like a lot of like wires getting crossed so that you can't guess quite what's going to happen next.
But this leads to him being suspended.
Yeah, he gets suspended.
So now he's still...
There's also 2 car chases.
Yes.
There's the one on those windy roads that you were talking about that's kind of cool. And then there's the other one where like Roxy's trying to murder him that I don't know.
But that's a car versus foot chase.
Right.
Yeah.
But doesn't he get in a car at some point?
No, right? Doesn't he? Am I wrong about that?
I think there's a car chase.
Okay.
I think because there's like with the big pillars and the
in the streets. It's got the old, the steep streets. I think like Kearney or something.
Yes. I think he practiced by like driving up and down Kearney Street or whatever. Yes,
and that's like classic noir.
What's the street that's the zigzag?
Oh God, I've forgotten. I would remember. I'm so out of that.
My great aunt and uncle live in San Francisco, and whenever I visited them, they would be like, "We got to drive down the zigzag street," or I can't remember what it's called.
It's interesting how protested this movie was at the time for
Lombard
its depiction.
Street.
Before it had come out. Well, even while they were shooting.
Yes.
So what exactly at that point? I'm not quite clear on this. Like, what were they protesting? With the script?
It must have been the script. I don't know how they figured it out. Like that this was a film about a bisexual woman who could be a psychopath or whatever. But that is what they were protesting. Obviously, it's in San Francisco, so maybe there was, I mean, that's like the home of gay activism in this country. So maybe
I don't know how they figured out either. I don't know what like the log line.
Maybe
was
someone got a
announced.
copy of the script or something. I don't know.
This movie has like 3 bisexual female characters, all of whom are violent.
Roxy might not be bisexual.
That's true.
True.
That is true.
She could just be gay,
and she likes watching.
Yeah, indeed.
Wait, she likes the peep.
She is a peeper.
She is a peeper.
That's true.
And that's why you're a finest film critic.
Thank you, Ben.
But yeah, it's like it gets into a thing where not that this movie feels innocuous now, but it kind of when you think about it within its time and place, it's like, well, you don't really have any bisexual representation in movies. And especially when like this was still a time very much where I think people were like, that's not real, you're either gay or straight.
Sure.
I think the idea that like, oh, here's a movie with a major bisexual character and also it's a movie about like, is she a serial killer or not?
Yeah.
Initially, like immediately just pissed people off.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a like it's obviously not a positive depiction of bisexuality, but I don't was that a stereotype at the time?
And
like bisexuals are murderous.
I don't think the movie draws a line in any way between the two.
But it's only a year after The Silence of the Lambs, which had a similar controversy around
that. Probably is what really.
And so maybe there was just some sort of like concerted effort, like let's watch out for these movies that sort of paint, LGBT people as demented or psychotic
I think you're right
or
about
anything
that.
like that.
I think Silence of the Lambs, especially with how revered it was and winning all the Oscars, that was...
It is crazy that they protested filming, that like police had to be at like on set to stop them from interrupting
which also
filming.
only helped this movie. Like, it definitely made the
guess
movie
so, right.
feel
It's,
like
oh
a
my
hot item by the
God,
time it
right.
came out. Yeah.
I mean, it does feel dated, some of the stuff. Like, I would be, embarrassed, especially now, even when I first watched it, more than when I first watched it.
Mm-hmm.
But it gets into an interesting debate about, representation. I'm obviously very pro the idea of like more positive representation of or not positive, but representation of people we don't see. But there's some people who think that you need to have positive depiction of women and positive depiction of black
they should only
people.
be these paragons of
and that you should. And I don't follow that idea. I think it's better just to have like complicated characters.
Yes,
Agreed.
absolutely.
I think it just becomes more loaded when like this movie's coming out and it's like, well, these are the first major bisexual characters we're getting in a film, and look, they all stab people,
Yeah, and the Beth character, like, it's interesting because she's so like, she's sort of there's something very pathetic about her character, but it's like they paint it, they have it both ways, that she's this like woman in love with this man, and that she's this lesbian who's been jilted, which is why she became this person. And so they really kind of give it to her, and it's poor Beth.
Yeah. She also, her scene where she finally poor Beth. And she also gets shot. Let's not forget. Yeah. Where she finally confesses, like, it was my only woman I ever slept with, and I didn't want anyone to find out. It is sort of like this, she's too embarrassed in a way, but you also kind of understand, it's still 1992.
Mm-hmm. So I guess your reading of that depends on what your reading of her character is.
Right.
And like, if you think that she's guilty, like I do, and that then you're saying, but if you, it's interesting that, I like this. I think I sent you guys something that I wrote, and I love
which
this.
Was so good.
Oh,
we should tweet it out.
No, I love this. But I love this quote of that
David almost knocked over a water bottle onto Ben's control.
He got excited.
Please read the quote.
But he said, the scripts that interest me are a little bit edgy and have a little tension between the audience and the film itself. And I even think between the filmmaker's intentions, I think there's not only room for ambiguity, but there's just so much going on within the film. It really takes the life of its own. And in some ways, like, he's an intuitive enough filmmaker that the film is like smarter than he is, than his intentions. Like, it's like the what actually ends up happening. Like, he's able to combine these things. So
he's like a master provocateur.
Yeah.
And he just knows how to push buttons in a way that creates meaning that sometimes is intentional and sometimes isn't.
Yeah.
But like, the thing I love about him is like, you never hear anyone have like an indifferent response to a Verhoeven movie. Like, there are people who actively hate his films,
this movie,
and people who love them, and no one's ever like, Like, people are like, that's weird. What the fuck is that? Why'd this make me uncomfortable? Or I like love it whole hog, or I'm wrestling with it, you know?
Right.
But he's definitely like someone who's interested in that relationship between the audience and the movie, and it not being a passive thing.
I agree.
Yeah.
Totally. And then
good director.
Yeah.
And then where he went after this, what were you going to say?
No, I'm not saying anything. I mean, I like this conversation. I'm just listening.
I wanted to, we were talking in the beginning of the conversation about how he uses like genre and how, and this was a really recent revelation for me that I didn't get until I read Adam Neiman's book about Showgirls.
Which I keep, because I know Adam and he's a pal.
God, you should read it. It's really good.
I need to read it because we're doing Verhoeven right now. I mean, it'd be nice to have had, but he lives in Toronto. But yes. But anyway, what were you reading his book? Carry on.
Yeah, and there's a lot of things about the book, and there's great lines about piece of shit or masterpiece that he's, that he, and I feel like you'll start quoting that book in this podcast. But he compared Showgirls to like the Gold Diggers movies, the Showgirls, which I didn't get on a first initial, which totally makes sense.
Right. That was Esther House's.
Want to make an old MGM musical.
It was Verhoeven's pitch to Esther House was I want to make a Gold Diggers type movie.
Yeah.
And Esther House was like, great, here's the script.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Your face right now is exactly what happened.
Right, but it's also like this like Greek tragedy, that movie.
Oh, God.
It's
to
this
shout
damned
out
woman who just falls deeper and deeper into the depths of hell.
To shout out Adam's book, it's called It Doesn't Suck, Showgirls.
With a question mark, right?
I believe so.
It doesn't suck? No, maybe it doesn't. Yeah. It's just maybe without the question mark.
It's with a period. It doesn't suck.
Interrobang.
Okay.
Interrobang.
Punctuation. It's great. I really recommend it. It's a short book, and it's really good.
You can get it on your Kindle.
Yeah.
Basic Instinct. So yeah, what happened?
Yeah, we've covered it out of order.
You know, well, there's right there because there's the whole Beth thing.
Yeah.
Is sort of the crux of the middle of the movie.
Right.
Where it's like, did she do it? You know.
Right. Right.
She...
After Rocky dies, he goes to see Trammell.
And through this, we have all the planting of like all Trammell's buddies are former killers of some. You know, she like collects these people.
It's great.
Yes,
that's her.
And more about
that's
the previous
Dorothy Malone.
books.
Yeah,
right. There's this scene where she goes to his apartment after he's been suspended.
Right.
And it becomes clear that like, okay, he's
and
now
they still haven't had sex at this point, I believe.
No,
they're still in the sort of flirt zone.
Yes,
they're kind of. You know, getting right in each other's faces.
Yeah,
and then she's like, let
real
me...
cute, modest flirting.
Yeah, so let me chunk this ice up for you with an ice pick.
Right. The Coke joke, you know, it's like now she's like relishing how far he's falling.
Right, because her initial temptation is the cigarette case.
Yeah. Right.
I told you I quit.
Right.
She's like... Okay.
Right, she's getting back on all his vices, get him all greased up again. And then so he's now like fully in it, goes to see Gus at the bar after he slept with her. Gus is like, you fucking dummy.
Well, right, so but they had that first sex scene right where he's playing the tension of, oh, is she gonna stab him too? It's the exact she gets the silk ties out, and then instead no, she just sort of flomps onto him.
Yeah, she does a flomping. It's a hardcore flomping. And then she goes there's the Rocky car chase. Goes over to her place. She has this total breakdown where she has no performative or entirely performative, depending how you look at the film, but this real kind of earnest, broken reckoning of her life and all the people she's lost, which leads to them having a more sensual sex scene.
Sure.
That we cut past. She says, make love to me, and then it's them sort of like nestling by the fire. And this is when she opens up about Dr. Beth.
Right.
So now Douglas has the pieces.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then he gets the book, and she's like, I'm done with you. Book's over.
Right. Well, our dear friend Gus, he reads that in the book.
The cop dies in an elevator with his legs sticking out.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, are we missing any plot stuff here? I'm trying to
No, I think we've covered all of it, right?
I think so.
Pretty much,
Now, but we have completely different conclusions.
Yeah.
That's good.
I poor Beth.
Yeah.
Now I'm more interested,
Gus.
though. Well, we're all feel bad for Gus.
Yeah, all he wanted to do is drink some sarsaparilla, ride that mechanical bull.
So you think that's Gus getting? I mean, that's Beth knifing Gus. Ice picking Gus in the elevator.
And like the thing, like
I agree with you.
You do?
I agree with you. I still think that both of them are in on it, but I think Beth is definitely the one who physically killed Gus.
But they didn't collaborate. They hate each other. Do you think they collaborated? They're having
So you think there's
Anon and Jay hate each other,
there's
right?
like a Rosencrantz and Guildenstern like movie of this where it's like the two of them just talking and
I don't think her hands are totally clean. You know, I think,
but it's
I think Beth is doing most of the hands-on dirty work.
The evidence against Beth is so sort of open and shut, right?
Yeah.
Like it's like the poncho is there, like right? Like it's like
it's true. It seems like it could be very planted,
right? Yes. When he kills her, it's like this all just got tied off really neatly, almost like it was orchestrated by some lady who writes crazy novels and leaves a path of bodies in her wake.
Right.
It's a great movie.
It is.
It is a great movie. But then when he goes to Catherine after all this is done, he doesn't say to anyone like, I think like I've got mixed feelings about shooting Beth.
Yeah.
Doesn't mention anything like that.
Right.
He just goes to her and he's like, can we get together forever?
Yeah.
Like he's like totally putty in her hands. Like rather than like, I know you set her up, like.
But you think about how loaded that situation is, right? Even if Catherine was never a suspect in this situation, okay? Beth is someone they've both had incredibly intimate relationships with. And now he had to kill her as a response to her going psycho against Catherine. And they're just like, so what do you think? Montauk? Where do you want to move? You know? Like there would be some grieving time to just process what the fuck just happened.
Right, in like February and like go to Telluride.
Right. Will we do holidays with my parents or your parents?
Well, he killed the tourists. I mean, it's like
true.
It's no big deal for him.
No, neither one is a saint. Yeah.
And then they have the sex scene. In his apartment, right?
Yeah.
Where she reaches for the ice pick, but I guess it rolled under the bed.
Yeah.
Is she like, oh, fuck, there's no ice pick? Or do you think she's like, you know what? No ice pick tonight. Forget it.
I don't know. Maybe it's just the thrill of knowing she could.
I like that read, where it's like, you know what? It's a 50-50 shot every time you sleep with Sharon Stone. Is that worth it?
She's got to she has her kinks too. She's got to, I don't know.
That's her fuck of the century where she's like, well, there has to be the chance that I murder you.
She likes
for it to be really good.
Pick play. Consensual pick play.
It's not consensual. Semi-consensual. He is, to me, she just has him in a jar.
He knows what he's doing.
He knows what he's doing. It's true. But you know what I mean? Like, she has put him in a bottle. Like, she like, this is it.
None of us have seen Fatal Instinct, have we?
No.
Fatal Instinct?
Fatal Instinct is the Carl Reiner, like Mel Brooks-esque parody of the 90s, 80s sex thriller.
This is a movie?
This is a movie.
1993. Huh. Directed by Carl Reiner. How do I not know
Who's the
about
female
this?
lead in it? It's someone who actually had a career.
Sherilyn Fenn.
Yeah.
Which is a funny,
my God.
funny, callback to Fire Walk with Me.
I've never seen it either.
Stars Armand Asante.
Right, I think he's
Sean
playing
Young
Douglas.
is in it.
Sean
Another,
Young, yes. I think Sean Young is more of the Sharon Stone type in the film.
James Remar, the great James Remar,
Yeah.
plays a character called Max Shady, which is a good Carl Reiner movie name.
I've never seen it, but I was just thinking there has to be a bit in that movie where she takes out the ice pick and then makes an ice sculpture instead of stabbing him, right?
Oh,
That's like 100% a gag in that movie.
Probably.
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds about right.
Okay.
It's all of 91 minutes long.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to do a bonus episode on that.
Yeah. The only thing we have left to do
Is the box office?
play the box office.
Yeah. So this movie was a huge hit.
Yes. 117 million domestic
Mm-hmm.
on a $49 million budget. Pretty expensive movie, I guess.
But he was big at the time.
But she only got paid like $500,000.
$500,000.
Crazy.
Yeah. I hope she makes like good residuals on this movie.
I wonder
Definitely.
if she does.
I think she
wonder if
definitely does.
I mean, I don't know what kind of a deal she cut, but
I bet you she made good residuals.
March 20th. What we're gonna do is we're gonna guess the Griffin is gonna guess
I want
the
to point
box
out one thing
office.
before that very quickly.
Uh-huh.
Whereas like Fatal Attraction was a massive cultural hit, but also
Sure,
got
like
like
one of the big
nominated for
movies
a
of the
bunch of
year. Right,
Oscars
right,
and
right.
was viewed as like a legitimate piece of like,
Yes.
high pulp.
Right.
This was very much written off as like trash.
For one, it came out in March.
Yeah.
It did get an editing nomination and a score nomination. I love Jerry
Both
Goldsmith
very well
score.
deserved, but also got like a ton of fucking Razzie nominations. And fuck the Razzies.
It
We've
got
said it before. We'll say
three
it again.
Razzie nominations, which is weird.
Jane Tripplehorn, who fucking, are you kidding me?
The Razzies suck.
Yeah. But like worst new star, worst male lead.
They
like,
suck.
Yeah.
They got it exactly wrong.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
creeps.
Exactly wrong.
They're just like if a movie has like naked women in it, it must be trashy or whatever. I don't know.
Yes.
I don't know what the
Yeah.
problem. Anyway,
Yeah.
it opens.
They hate sexuality.
It opens number one, $15 million, which is very good.
And then it
for
just
the
like
time.
plays throughout the whole spring into the summer.
All right. So
Okay.
number two is a comedy, a huge hit
I have
comedy.
to guess the box office. This is this segment. Okay.
Made $7 million in its sixth weekend. It's a huge. It was number one for the last 5 weekends.
1992.
1992.
Home Alone?
No, it's like it's an SNL comedy.
Oh, Wayne's World?
Wayne's World. I don't know. There you go.
I mean, there's too much of a clue. Yeah.
Number three is the greatest movie ever made.
Wayne's World 2?
No, it's a comedy, a legal comedy.
That you love?
I think it's arguably the greatest film ever
Are you
made.
being sarcastic here?
I guess so, but I do love it.
You do love it. It's a legal comedy.
I mean, who doesn't love it? It's like illegal to not like this movie. Maybe Miriam doesn't like it.
Illegal to not like this movie? Ben loves it. Ben's nodding
It's
vigorously.
pretty good. It was an Oscar winner.
My Cousin Vinny.
My cousin Vinny.
Okay.
I mean, who doesn't? I mean, that's just a movie. It's like
No, it is true. They did.
if I had to watch
yeah.
that movie every day, I'd be okay.
To be
right?
fair,
You
they
know?
presented the bill before Congress, but they have not passed the law yet. That
Sure,
it is
it's an
illegal.
amendment we're trying to
Yes,
add to.
right.
Number four is a movie that I would love to do on this podcast one day. It's a cyber thriller.
Wayne's World 2?
A cyber thriller.
The Net?
No, earlier.
Earlier cyber thriller
Starring a James Bond.
starring a Bond is a Connery or a Brosnan?
Brosnan.
It's a Brosnan's cyber
Based
thriller.
on a novel.
Oh,
or,
Lawnmower Man?
right, but it's like not actually, it doesn't have
Yeah.
anything to do with the novel.
No, it has a occupation in a title.
Right, yeah. Based on a Stephen
I've never
King.
seen it.
It's wild. It's
Who
not
directed
good.
it?
I don't even know.
Okay.
Like nobody.
Okay, we'll do it next week.
And then number five is another female centered film, but a nice sort of weepy kind of dramedy.
Ensemble, or is it like a star vehicle?
Can I guess?
2 stars, yes.
Yeah.
Steel Magnolias?
It's a good guess. It's in that zone.
Fried green tomatoes?
There you go.
I thought it was one of the two. There we go.
Which was a huge hit, $82 million in 1992. It was about fucking tomatoes.
Yeah, my godmother's favorite movie of all time. Every time I talk to her, she
I've
goes,
never
have you
seen-
seen Fried green tomatoes? She's from Corsica.
Miriam, we got to get you out of here.
Yes.
It was such a pleasure.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much
for
for
having me.
being here.
It was a genuine pleasure to have you.
You're one of my favorite film writers. People should look up all your works. We'll post links to the two pieces you sent
I
us.
shouldn't have sent them to you.
Well, at least
Do you not want? We'll post the one you want people to read. Okay, great.
I mean, this will come out in a while, but yes, for sure.
It comes out 2020.
All right.
Bye.
Get out of here.
Yes. Thank you all for listening. Please remember to rate, review, subscribe. Thanks to Ange Fergudo for our social media, Lane Montgomery for our theme song.
Good question. I don't know.
Why is this? What? Because he had a basic instinct that she's a murderer.
Yeah,
I
it's
guess.
a good call.
I don't know.
I don't actually know why it's called that. It's a good title.
This feels
It's
like
a great title, but it
instinct.
doesn't make. I don't know what does that mean.
It feels like an erotic thriller title generator website would come up with basic instinct. Yeah.
All right. Come on. Wrap it up.
Sorry.
Joe Bowen.
Yeah.
Pat Reynolds.
Yeah.
Artwork. Go to blankies.reddit.com for some real nerdy shit.
Right.
And as always,
what?
I don't.
Okay, fine. No,
No.
What?
Help me
What?
here.
I don't know.
So many good lines. You got this.
Magna cum laude, the ice sculpture, Carl Reiner. Just
All
want
right.
to come up with your own end as always. I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Oh, you didn't have anything.
You have to add that in.
This is your job.
Add in a fart. Add in a fart.
Okay, fine. Great.
Thank you.